Pleasure to invite the panelists on stage. We'll start with the moderator. It's Mr. Kanthimathinathan, RK, MD and CEO, Encore Theme. A round of applause for the MD and CEO of Encore Theme. So please take your seat. And I request Manu to keep 4 chairs on stage, please, only, please. Then I invite Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Head of Innovation and Architecture, DCB Bank. A round of applause for Mr. Lohar, please. I invite Mr. Sudin Baraokar, Head of Innovation in State Bank of India. A round of applause for Mr. Sudin, please. Last but not the least, the last panelist of this session, Mr. Naimish, Shah, Head of Innovation in Emirates and BD. A round of applause for Mr. Naimish, Shah. And with that, over to you, Mr. RK.
Good afternoon. Should we wait for some more people to join, or we can start? We can start? Okay. We are talking in the afternoon panel about the evolution of blockchain technology and its current state now. And as you know that blockchain is not anymore new. Everybody is talking about blockchain. And everybody is talking about blockchain as something which will change the way the business is going to be done in the future. And many of them are talking it as a disruptive technology. As well as there is a lot of skepticism around the same technology because it is being spoken about it for the last 2.5, 3 years, and also lot about various usages of blockchain technology where there is skepticism around. Now, having said that, if you look at blockchain today, if I have to draw any analogy, I can think of, one can think of TCP/IP, where in those days when the TCP/IP protocol came, people had a lot of skepticism around it when there were other protocols existing to create the network. But what TCP/IP did was it became the base for the today's internet, which has created a big revolution across the globe. Today, the internet is the thing that we all breathe, talk, and work with. Having said that, we can compare blockchain with that of TCP/IP. That's what positive people are perceiving about blockchain, how it will change things in the future. Having said that, I invite all our panelists today, post session, the lunch. Therefore, we will have some interesting discussions around the blockchain. I will start with Naimish, who is there in the extreme right of us, and he's from Emirates and BD Bank. He can give definitely a perspective about how blockchain is being perceived and applied outside India. And we have our leader, Sudin, who has led the complete blockchain initiative in our country, and we will have more interesting things to talk about it. And next to me, I have Mr. Prasanna, who has also taken very good initiatives in DCB Bank to implement some of the solutions, problem-solving solutions over there. Now, to start with, Naimish, is, as we said, we are talking about blockchain. Can you just give us about the fundamental usages or applications where today blockchain is being applied? Is it being used for solving any fundamental problems in the bank in general and specific to ENBD as well?
Hi, thank you very much. In our perspective, we see blockchain as quite disruptive technology and can help banking industry a lot. We started our journey about 15 months ago in terms of researching on blockchain, and now we have reached a stage where we have a couple of use cases which are already live in production, and there's a huge potential which we need to tap in terms of, there are many other use cases. However, I think one important aspect is the readiness of our regulation and into draft or redrafting of the e-commerce laws, where the audit trails in blockchain or the transactions in blockchain are accepted as a chain of evidence. If that is done, then I see that it will change the way governments and business interact with each other. It's like digitalization cross-entity digitalization. While every organization has a digital agenda in silos, this cuts across all the organizations together. The complete business process involving multiple parties can be digitized, in my view. There is a phase 2 of it, which we probably will talk later about the value transfer. Today we're talking about message transfer, which can have, itself has a lot of value add when it comes to business process optimizations.
Yeah, thanks, Naimish. Sudin, coming to you, as I said, you have been leading the blockchain initiative in the banking sector in our country. And I just want to ask you that many believe today we are still a long way to go. Therefore, I would like to understand where we are in the Indian banking sector, and that will help all our participants over here to understand where Indian banking sector stands in terms of blockchain initiative.
Sure. So when we started blockchain, this was in September last year. Yes, we were a long way ago. I completely agree. We started with some of our internal kind of projects, and we realized that unless we collaborate with the banks and take this ahead, it's not going to happen. So out went our ecosystem, and out went our isolation, and in came collaboration and innovation. And what we did is at the start of this year, in 2017, we formed a blockchain forum called BankChain, which now is grown up to 20 plus banks. Most of them are Indian banks, including ICICI, DCB, and others, also Emirates NDP from the Middle East. And the idea here is to get all these pilots that we're trying to do. The pilots are quite a few of them. Some are on smart contracts, KYC, consortium lending, payments, remittances. What we're trying to do is that get all the banks together, give them nodes on the cloud to test and validate the pilots, and then build up these apps and systems and platforms so that we can take this ahead. So I think with this initiative that we've taken, which is unprecedented collaboration by the banks, I think this is getting closer our objectives of getting a production-ready blockchain solution. Initially, we also thought of using trade finance and payments and remittances as the initial use cases. But specifically for something like payments and remittances, there's already SWIFT, right? There's already a organized platform for doing that, right? We thought of using blockchain for something the bank does not have, because today, every day, we're going to be challenged on how are you using emerging technology and what is the outcome to the bank using this emerging technology. So we thought some of these other use cases like the KYC, AML, fraud, smart contracts that we are actively working, and we just did a mini blockathon, as I call it, a week back. And probably next month, we plan to have a blockathon for blockchain where 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the night, we'll get all the IT teams of the banks, all the banks together, and start developing these pilots into actually mini live solutions, and then take it ahead.
Thank you, sir. And I think it's really a great thing from the lead bank of our country to take the blockchain initiative way ahead. I just would like to ask Mr. Prasanna, you're also part of the BankChain. Definitely, if you can tell us more about your involvement in blockchain and also some of your experience at DCP, what you are looking at and what you are doing in terms of blockchain initiatives.
Okay, so thanks for the inviting here to talk about this prime topic, the blockchain. So I support Sudin, whatever Sudin has said. So it was very nice to have the banks all together coming in and forming a platform along with SBI, ICCI, even Emirates has joined. So we are part of that engagement. So we identified few of the use cases, as Sudin has said. So around 20-21 use cases. Then we brainstormed that as a forum. And as a discipline, we make sure that we meet every month. So there are some various threads like compliance, business, technology, and steering committee. So all of them are engaged properly. And as an outcome, the blockathon is one of the outcomes. So we're done with a POC of 2 or 3 use cases, AML, KYC, lending, and sooner or later we're going to talk about the trade finance also. So we are engaged with that because as a standalone bank or as a single, we cannot do anything as far as the blockchain is concerned. It has to be part of a collaboration along with the fintech or some good service provider, along with the other banks, wherein we can really come up with a very good use cases. Backside within a bank, as we are engaged with the external banks and we are collaborating, we are doing good at that end. But internally also, we are giving those trainings to or creating those awareness sessions, not only within a technology, but also business side. Okay, because ultimately, whenever we do any project in a banks, we have to take buy-in or a sign-offs kind of a thing from business, audit team, security team, so on. So once we get into this zone of blockchain, we need to prepare our senior management committee, as well as all the stakeholders to know what is meant by blockchain, how they are going to sign off, how they are going to really engage with this technology. Those sessions we are doing, and it's going really well. So being DCB into SME space, almost most of the customers are SME. We are taking that advantage, and we will discuss that within this forum also. How can we bring on unique use case for that space? Like few days back, we come up with the GST implementation, right? So wherein you will see those invoices, quotations, all these kind of data will go between multiple stakeholders. There comes the requirement of something which says trust and transparency. So blockchain is a mechanism which gives that liberty. So we are seeing that use case if we can incorporate here. So there will be transparency between the suppliers, vendors, and all the stakeholders out there. And any which ways, whenever you want to access that particular contract invoice, it will be easily available, which is stored securely in the blockchain. That's one of the initiative which we'll think of as a DCB bank. So it's really going good. Just to support you, what you said about TCP/IP and that analogy. So I would say the blockchain is really evolved a lot over a period of last 1 year. Okay, it was not like internet way back. It was like without browser. So now slowly with the help of incorporation of the IBM, Microsoft, and the Prime Chains and many other fabrics which are coming into, and that fabric every day they are doing something or the other improvements. So we'll see over a period of 3-4 years which will be those standard fabrics which will give the output for the particular segment like banking, insurance, healthcare, and all. But it is a lots happening. I would say now slowly the way internet was being progressed with the help of a browser, we come up with a lot of use cases, right? Similarly, now blockchain has really evolved. So we'll see with the collaboration with other premium banks, we'll sooner or later see the blockchain will be at a mainstream.
Mr. Prasanna, I think it's an excellent insight to all of us over here. Mr. Sudin, we are talking about a lot of POCs today, and a lot of people are talking about a lot of proof of concepts, and in the web also a lot of case studies are available. From your experience and your view in the last few months, which one of the application or a case study do you think which is very promising and it will be very easy to implement?
Yeah, I think from my experience, things like smart contracts, things like consortium lending, things like AML fraud, I think these things were probably, unlike payments and remittances where banks already have established platforms and solutions, I think these are the areas where the bank may not have these kind of solutions. I think that would be a good area to start with. The interesting note about emerging technology is that unless we look at what outcomes can we get and what value and what benefit the bank gets, I think that's, the primary piece on our radar, right? So I think at least by the end of this year, we should have 2 or 3 of these solutions go live. Okay. In fact, we try to do it earlier. And I think just to throw a light on emerging tech and hype tech like blockchain, something like the cloud started way back in 2004, 2005, right? It then peaked sometime in probably 2012, And now it's become mainstream, right? The decline of the Gartner curve, the hype cycle curve is actually not a decline in the technology. It's become mainstream.
Correct.
Even banks are, going to the public cloud. We already have a private cloud. We've also done a O365 implementation. So that means we're already on the public cloud. We are also looking at a hybrid cloud. So the same way with blockchain, I mean, this, just to think of it, I mean, when you look at blockchain and you see the benefits, a distributed ledger, right? For a bank, it can mean a lot of things. I can do audit, I can do reconciliation, I can set up payments, I can build up an entire a payment system, a remittance system. I mean, it's unimaginable the kind of things that blockchain can help the banks do. It's just a super technology waiting to be exploited. So we are very positive about it. We've already set up, we are already investing in competencies, in resources. We are also going to set up next year our innovation center, which will be the largest of its kind in the world, probably, more than 20 plus innovation zones for that center. And we're going to have a dedicated fintech blockchain zone. And that will be in collaboration with all the other banks, to take this ahead.
I just want to support what Sudin has said. Even Naimish can give the inputs on that. So the beauty of any technology is when we have really good use cases. So we have done enough of payments use cases. Most of the 60–70% of startup fintechs are around payments because it's one of the prime requirement for the consumer. But when you take example of blockchain, it does help in many areas. Like take example UPI we built. It took around 1.5 to 2 years to really get settled down as an UPI backend engine. And on top of that, we are seeing the use cases like Bheem or many other use cases, and it will be a long way to go. Okay, so but it for a well-known technology, it took for all those banks to really have a mainstream use cases like Bheem, and most of the banks has done their own apps, but hardly, I'm not sure. What success of any technology is use case. So similarly, blockchain, when as Sudin said, those use cases will be helpful where exactly nothing is being done, and which is important for banks when we look at banking after 10 years. Okay, do we really want to do reconciliation kind of a game every now and then, everyday basis? One file comes from switch end, settlement end, core banking end. There are few guys are sitting there and doing that reconciliation or settlement and providing those reports back to that trusted agency like NPCI, Visa, or RBI. So the man in middle, reconciliation, those errors which are going to happen. So all these can be really, and those many investments, like there are some switches or servers in between, like in PSP, in UPI, and the centralized servers at NPCI, those can be really replaced. When a controlled system like a blockchain comes out there, when you look at as a part of innovation or as a part of a banking transformation over a period of 5, 6, 10 years, so blockchain is the answer for all these things.
I think Sudin and Prasanna, I think it's a great insight in terms of, especially Sudin, when you said, and Prasanna continued the same thing, that is, instead of solving a problem which is already solved, look at the problem which is not solved, like reconciliation things and then smart contracts and other things. I think it's a very good view of looking at new technology from that angle rather than using it for something which is already there, improving upon it.
Yeah, just to give you just a recent success we had with emerging tech. We launched our SBI National Hackathon on May 20th, and then we felicitated our winners in the first week of July. And one of the key things that we did is use the API service virtualization technology, right? And one of the reasons we had to use it is because instead of exposing our UAT box and our APIs on that UAT box to start off some developers, there were a lot of concerns from security and risk and compliance. And for all banks, including SBI, security, risk, and compliance always comes first, right? So we went ahead and used this emerging technology called service virtualization. We service virtualized the APIs and we put it on the cloud. It meant that we took into account all the safeguards and took into account all the benefits we bring to the bank in terms of security, risk, and compliance. Sure. So this is a very successful way that the perception that emerging tech is all fancy and hype and it's going to be a threat to banks or other organizations is actually not true.
Yeah,
So this is a very successful way of using emerging tech to benefit the bank, not only from a developer or startup perspective, but also from our own internal processes, such as security, risk, and compliance.
I think you have touched a very, very sensitive and important topic, Mr. Sudin. Definitely it benefits all of us over here. Mr. Naimish, coming to you, I know ENBD has already implemented a couple of blockchain solutions, and a couple of solutions is live also. I would like you to share especially the ones which you have implemented and which is live today and which is being used by the bank today.
Hi. So like my colleagues said, right, blockchain has been a nascent technology. It has come through the maturity curve, and now it's time that we show business value. Business sees value in this. A lot of times business asks, why blockchain? So we have passed that phase, and being in the UAE, our biggest, and 80% of them being expatriates, so payment was a very good use case for us. So we did a cross-border remittance use case over blockchain as first example, where we eliminated all the MT103s. Now everybody must be a banker here, so I assume that everybody knows what MT103 is. And all transactions were simulated over the blockchain. Other benefits which my business validated, not the technology and innovation team, is the real-time reconciliation, better liquidity management system in terms of pre-funding model. So they signed off the proof of value and they saw great benefit, and now we have put a vision together that all our corridors of cross-border remittance, whether it's India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Australia, they all will be on blockchain in the back end. With what we have gone live with a partner in India. A second use case, and as Prasanna said, is the proof of pudding is always when business sees value. In UAE, we have a high fraud losses because of fraudulent check instruments. Physical paper is forged, and that leads to a high number of high losses. The numbers indicate it was more closely about 25 million dirhams. That's about probably close to $7 million or something in the UAE last year, combined all the banks, or even more, as they say. So what we have done now is every check, we implemented a fraud. One was a payment, now it's a fraud thing. Every check we issue to the retail customer is a child smart contract registered on the blockchain. What does it mean is that if anybody tries to mimic the fraud check through forged printing or something, the blockchain will never allow it to get cleared at the presenting bank or at the issuing bank, whichever comes first. So this will help the economy of UAE to a large extent, more or less Emirates NBD alone. And now Central Bank has taken our technology and they've asked us to lead the consortium in UAE and get this implemented across all the banks as a phase one. Phase two would be probably eliminating the paper itself and make the whole check system nothing but it's a standing instruction with a PDC feature.
I think, Naimish, it's a great example. As you know, all of us perceive that check as an instrument will no longer be there, but still to ensure the fraudulent things doesn't happen in terms of checks is a great idea, and it's a nice implementation of a live blockchain one.
I'll just add to the point. There's always been a saying, kill the check.
Yeah.
But the reality is never there.
Correct.
If you see US or India or UAE, and the value is that if you can show benefit to the business early on, then your vision of the future gets approved. Yeah. If you keep showing them dreams of the future and no value today, you become a social event. It becomes like a PR thing for the bank to do. Yeah. That's how. There has to be a quick win and have a long-term strategy as well, but eat the elephant in small bites.
Yeah, I think check as an instrument is a very key thing in all the banks in India also, and it is really a good live case study that you have shared across, and I think most of our banks will benefit because that may be a easy case study to implement very fast in terms of blockchain is concerned. Taking the same thing from there, I just would like to ask you more about smart contracts as well. What do you think about the smart contracts?
So smart contract is a feature of is the core of every blockchain. It's an application, right? So if it's Ethereum, you call it smart contract. If it's Hyperledger, which is IBM and Linux Foundation's blockchain platform, you call it chain code. So smart contract is nothing but that piece of code which helps you define the terms and conditions in advance and executes at the right time. So even our check example, which I mentioned, is a smart contract, child smart contract. The checkbook is the parent smart contract, and the check leaf is the child smart contract registered on the blockchain. Even the payments, for example, the Swift emulated message on the blockchain to reach your recipient bank is in a form of a smart contract because it's a piece of code which you send across to the bank.
So can we say that every transaction that is done in a blockchain can be called as a smart contract?
In some form of the other.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Sudin, though it may be a little bit technical, but coming from a regulation point of view, I just want to have your perception of the same. In a banking environment today, we are always talking about private and closed kind of environment where when it comes to blockchain, we will call it as a private and permission ledger. Okay. But do you think that banking industry will move towards an open and permissionless ledger because it may change the way the complete banking is being done itself?
So something like something like blockchain that really advocates, as you just said, whether it's a permission ledger or sometimes a permissionless ledger, there is no intermediation required. It's directly P2P. It can be P2P. It can be B2B directly. And then comes in, then, you know, I mean, if I look at the technology, and the question is the RegTech, right? Now, this technology has been built and can be successful if you don't put in the RegTech, right? Because exactly you're doing everything directly, right? So, but to get that trust factor, that's where the RegTech will come in. And therefore, we will have to get the authorities and regulators to be part of this exercise. And because that's where the trust and credibility comes in. But it's a paradox, because blockchain is, you can do everything directly. You can create an entire banking and a financial services industry entirely on blockchain. Okay, so it's a big paradox. But because of this trust and credibility factor, and obviously because of the regulators and authorities who have to make sure that, that the rules are being followed, and if you're licensed to bank, then you must follow those rules, is what we have to get the regulatory node kind of concept in. We have to figure out how to embed or integrate all these blockchain solutions and applications with the authorities. Otherwise, then the trust and credibility factor will not be there. So it's kind of paradox. I think I think we are better placed now. We have been working with some of the authorities and regulators. They are very keen that we take this technology ahead. And we'll also collaborate, just as we are collaborating with the banks, we'll also collaborate with the authorities and regulators to take it ahead.
I think, Mr. Sudin, it's really a good thing that regulators are also being part of the whole ecosystem. And I'm sure as part of the bank chain, regulators also will play a very, very key role to make the complete thing as a reality, a big ecosystem in India, and being 1/6 of the population in the world. And we will be the leaders in creating such a mega environment for our transactions. Mr. Prasanna, coming back, when you said about a lot of case studies and other things, today we are talking about a lot of proof of concepts, and we talk about a lot of small case studies. But when do you think that real application per se, fully ready blockchain, will be there in the ecosystem? Is it a 1 year or a 2 year, or you think that it is still a long way to go?
So just I support what Sudin has said, and regarding the earlier question, permission-based, non-permission. It all depends upon the type of use case we want to do. That's the basic answer to do that. For example, if you want to do something kind of like a Bitcoin, which is publicly available with everyone, so there comes your public blockchain you can use, which is a non-permission so on. But in the banking scenario, certainly we will have those permission-based kind of a blockchain softwares. Now, coming to the your question, which was related to the earlier questions, when will we be having that blockchain 1.0 for payments, which are a certain use case? So, for any of the new technology, blockchain is not an exception. The awareness is required, proof of concepts are required, pilots are required, implementation is required, and based upon the use case, the buying from the various stakeholders are required. Take example, payments or a certain banking relevant use case, certainly buying from regulatory and buying from other banks, those rules and regulations has to be set so that it's streamlined properly. So these proofs of concepts are really helping for that. And more or less, having that bank chain kind of a platform is helping to understand how other banks are really responding to that. So it's a positive energy altogether. They're helping with technology per se. The business team also collaborating there, or their compliance team also coming there. My security guy always asks you how to do this and that. He also gets participated into those blockathon kind of work. And sooner or later, almost every unit in the organization will be working around blockchain. So take example, one bank, for example, DCB Bank. So we are forming a core group, the way we have a payments group within a bank, right? A payment technology group or a payment business team or a security team to take care of the security testing of those payments relevant applications. So similarly, blockchain relevant also, within an organization, those core team has to be there. So that before getting into the actual pilot or actual production, this buying has to be done. This is one way to look at as an organization perspective. What's happening globally? What's happening with those service providers, or we can say those fabrics? Hyperledger we talk about from the Linux Foundation, or IBM is having its own Hyperledger, or you talk about Microsoft is having its own platform which gives an liberty to have many more platforms within one architecture, or multi-chain is an open chain. Which one to use, right? That's a question. There are more than 30, 40 such fabrics. Okay, now let's take example of a Microsoft OS, right? We have seen progress from MS-DOS, which was there in 80s or 82s. If I will ask to build a payment experience on MS-DOS or lending experience on MS-DOS, it would have been just like a magic, right? How to do that? It took almost 20 plus years to be as in Windows 10. And look at the beauty of Windows or Linux or those operating systems, how they are evolved. And it's a backend system. Nobody really talks about, when we talk about the beauty of UPI, who hardly talks about this Linux and we have built it on Windows? Nobody talks. Similarly, blockchain standardization is going on globally. W3C Foundation is inviting Microsoft, IBM, and many other organizations, so that the way we have that HTTP kind of a protocol standardized on internet, similarly, those standardized fabrics will be there. Over a period of 3-4 years, we'll see certain organizations like IBM, Microsoft, and Hyperledger, Ethereum, those will be standardized fabrics. Once they are standardized and mature enough, it will be very easy for banks to really implement very good use cases on those softwares. Then we'll not talk about blockchain and all. We'll talk about those use cases that time. So I would say work is happening. We have reached to the almost some of the use cases and pilots. So 2018 or end of 2017, we will see some of the good use cases into production. So we will learn from that. And within a mainstream, I would see almost more than 20 governments are asking to build some of the other things, like Dubai government, Naimish can add. They are saying everything on their government work has to come in blockchain by 2020. So I think over a period of 3 years, we'll be in some of the good use cases in production.
I think it's really good data to talk about blockchain, and also you said 2017-18, it's not too far, it's very near. Having said that, one last question to all the panelists over here, because we have a lot of bankers over here. I definitely today's sharing would have taken away all the skepticism around blockchain, and definitely would have given more positive outlook in terms of the perception. But having said that, many of the banks, State Bank is a leading bank when it comes to technology, and same way in Middle East, ENBD is one of the leading banks when it comes to technology, and DCB being part of the bank chain shows, But there are today many of the other banks who are still having a watch at the blockchain thing, what's happening, Should they wait for things to happen in blockchain, or they should invest in technology and then solve their day-to-day problems in blockchain? Is it ready today? I just would like to ask each one of your perception on that as a last question, so that will be a real helpful pointer to all the bankers over here who is just watching what's happening in the blockchain technology space. Yeah, you can start.
Okay, so I mean, and just to be honest, it is very nascent technology. Yeah? I would admit that there is a lot of skepticism within certain sections of business about whether this solves all the problems. But that's natural, yeah, because there's been so much of hype about it. And like Sudin mentioned, cloud was talked about 10 years ago. Blockchain will also go to the mainstream. Now there are two kinds of, there are two classifying entities, I would say, whether it's banks or any other organization. It all depends upon their internal appetite of taking the lead position. Some people want to be followers because of their size, because of their investment, because of their funding. Some entities want to lead. So those who want to lead will take a measured approach to research and development, start early, and be ready when the market is ready in terms of use cases. So I think there is no right and wrong answer. Some entities taking a position, a prudent position of waiting before the technology becomes stable is the right thing to do for them. But some banks like us and fewer SBIs and DCB, they want to lead. So when you want to lead, you have to take certain risks. You'll have to experiment, you have to celebrate failures. You have to celebrate experimentation. Yeah, as we all hear now, fail, but fail fast, fail often, and also have the guts to kill the idea if it's not working well. I think it all depends upon appetite. And like I said, like if internet was was for information, the blockchain is a new internet for transactions. It will become mainstream in a couple of years down the line. And by 2020, we have a mandate to, a lot of government interactions will be on blockchain. So we better be ready.
Sure. I think thanks, Mr. Sudin. I would like Prasanna to answer, then come to you, because so that it will be a...
Yeah. Okay. So, Naimish, really nice in comments or summary of what is really required and why we need to go ahead with the blockchain. So, when I look at my own personal views of a digital transformation of any of the organization, take a view where we are, why innovation is required. Okay, take example of if I want to do digital transformation, I need to improve on people, process, and the technology. Technology is one of the aspects. When you talk about the technology, there are some, I look at the 6 aspects are like security, or you talk about IoT or artificial intelligence or cloud, which is blockchain is there. Okay, so, and a big data. So that is why we look at a blockchain as one of the key transformation agent. Way back in 10 years before or 20 years before, there was no role kind of a DBA, database administrator. When the RDBMs came, there kind of a lot of role has appeared. You have seen the transformation. There are multiple roles are there in this year, last year, UI, UX expert or some data scientist experts and so many other things. Over a period of 4 or 5 years, you will be having the blockchain experts or a blockchain administrator or blockchain designers. So something like that. So as Naimish has rightly said, somebody has to do experimentation and take a lead and fail fast or succeed fast and set an example. That's what we are doing. And I think this is the right time. This train has already started. You have to be there and you have to engage your digital transformation journey. Blockchain is one of those radical change agents. We have to adapt that.
I think, Mr. Sudin, as you know, in India, all the banks and all the financial institutions look at the topmost bank in India and the lead bank, State Bank of India, to do anything, even if it is a technology or it is regulatory things and other things. And also in this initiative, not only you are there, the top 2 banks are there together. Therefore, I would like you to share the complete roadmap or guidance for the banks over here in terms of this blockchain evolution and summarize the whole session.
Yeah, so first of all, let me clarify. No bank is big or small. We are all banks, and just as you have OpenStack, we also want to promote open bank innovation. And we really want to push this collaboration. Everything in the next 5-10 years, everything will be API-based, everything will be microservices-based. The entire patterns of consumption, since we are a consumer, we cannot always spend on R&D. These would have to be done by our partners and startups. But everything is going to dramatically and fundamentally change. And it's coming at the right time, because if you see post-digitization and post-demonetization, this is the entire BFSI space is such a huge opportunity waiting to happen, right? So I think we should leverage these technologies. We should collaborate. We should have an open mind. In fact, all the current members of the BlockChain consortium are inadvertently also putting our own ideation and IP at stake, right? But we haven't looked at, okay, this is my idea or this is your idea. We've all come together, and that's how it should take place. We are very positive about the roadmap ahead. I was just at a Goa BFSI function some months back, and one of the government officials asked the public, who is the biggest startup of fintech in India? And in fact, I'm asking you all the question. Can somebody answer who is the biggest startup of fintech in India? Can anyone answer? Who's the biggest startup of fintech in India?
Paytm.
Okay, somebody said Paytm from the panel itself. The government of India is the biggest startup and fintech in India. And the way they're pushing the digitization, the fintech, everything, what they're doing is an incredible opportunity for all of us banks to propel ahead.
I think, Mr. Sudin, it's a great way of looking at it, Government of India being the biggest startup of fintech. And also the message is very clear. It's get together, collaborate and complement with each other, and the world is ours. Thank you all. And thanks, Mr. Naimish, thanks, Mr. Sudin, thanks, Mr. Prasanna, for the wonderful discussions in the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I request you to be here for a minute, please. Thank you so much for this interesting discussion on blockchain technology. And I request, if we have Mr. Deepak Sharma, Chief Digital Officer of Kotak Mahindra Bank here in the hall. Do we have? Sir, we request you to please present mementos to our dignitaries for this session. The moderator, Mr. Mr. Kanthimathinathan, RK, MD and CEO of Encore Theme. A round of applause for the moderator, please. Wonderfully moderated session. Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Head of Innovation and Architecture at DCB Bank. Round of applause for them, please. Mr. Sudin Baraokar, Head of Innovation of State Bank of India. And Mr. Naimish Shah, he is again the Head of Innovations in Emirates and BD. A group photo is requested. If we can please have a group photo. A group photo is requested, please, with your mementos. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. And after the blockchain technology, another very popular technology and game-changing technology rather in the BFSI sector, the clouds.